If you have a lot of women in your workplace, things might be a little less crowded for you tomorrow. That's because many women are saying they're taking the day off as a way to send a message. But some others say the protest is a misguided effort that may cause more problems. Correspondent Kristen Fisher takes a look.
When millions marched across the country for women's rights the day after President Trump took office, it was likely the largest single-day demonstration ever recorded in U.S. history. Now, nearly halfway into his first 100 days, the same group that organized the Women's March is preparing to strike.
This is an important message regarding the closing of all ACPS schools this Wednesday.
Alexandria City Public Schools in Virginia is one of 2 school districts that will be closed tomorrow in response to this Day Without Women. A voicemail that went out yesterday to a Fox News employee, as well as all parents with kids in the district, explains that more than 300 staff members have requested Wednesday off.
The decision is based solely on our ability to provide sufficient staff to cover all of our classrooms. It is not based on a political stance or position.
The strike's organizers insist that it's not necessarily a protest against President Trump.
We need America to feel what a day without a woman would feel like.
But critics of the strike aren't buying it, especially since the Conservative Media Research Center claims that liberal billionaire George Soros has donated millions to their partners. Not to mention, nearly 76% of Alexandria's residents voted for Hillary Clinton.
I mean, this is a district that overwhelmingly voted for Hillary Clinton, so I think that, they're just so steeped in anti-Donald Trumpism that they would be very quick to pull the plug on school in order to enable their teachers to miss a day of work.
Pulling the plug in Alexandria means that 15,000 students will be staying home from school tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lotus, and I think this disproportionately hurts single moms who rely on the educational system and public schools in particular in order to watch their kids while they're able to go to school.
Organizers say the school closures were not expected, and that if you can't afford to strike, don't.
There are many ways you can be in solidarity with women. You can wear red on tomorrow. You can shop in women-owned businesses. And, there are many ways to show your solidarity without putting your job on the line.
But critics argue that it's not about those who can't afford to strike. It's about those who can't afford for others to strike. Bret?
Kristen, thank you. A federal judge has declined to temporarily stop construction of the final section of the Dakota Access Pipeline. The developer is finishing up work and says it could be moving oil through that pipeline as early as next week. Native American groups continue to go to court to try to stop it. Bidding starts tomorrow for contractors who want a piece of President Trump's southern border wall and the billions of dollars that will be spent to build it. National correspondent William Lajeunesse tells us what's involved in that process.
We will soon begin the construction of a great wall along our southern border.
That process begins Wednesday when the administration entertains bids to design and build a wall on the Mexican border, 30 feet tall and resistant to climbing, tampering, or damage. Preferably concrete, but it could be steel or both. A prototype is due in 2 weeks, with a firm proposal, including price, due in May.
The border wall is unwise, immoral, ineffective.
Most Democrats today oppose Trump's wall, but that wasn't the case a decade ago when they overwhelmingly supported President Bush's $2 billion border barrier, including then-Senator Barack Obama.
It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders.
But the 2006 Secure Fence Act ran out of money. Instead of 700 miles of double fencing, as called for, agents got 350 of mostly single-layer fence. Some argue Trump is simply finishing what Bush started.
It's important to understand that every border is different.
Magal Security in Israel has built barriers around the world. Most include sensors that detect vibration and noise to alert agents to intruders. The company is expected to bid on the U.S. wall.
There is no solution that fits all. You have to take the various technologies that exist today in order to tailor the right solution to the right threat.
Sources say a likely configuration would use existing fence to slow down would-be immigrants, an access road, and the new barrier as a secondary fence to stop them. As to where the wall goes first, I am told that several sections will be built simultaneously, one likely near El Centro, California, between already fortified Yuma and San Diego. Bret?
William, thank you. Overseas, U.S.-backed Iraqi forces are fighting their way through a government complex in the heart of western Mosul. This comes after the Iraqis stormed the buildings in an overnight raid. They're facing fierce counterattacks from ISIS terrorists. It's the latest advance in a two-week campaign to clear Mosul's western side of extremists and terrorists who once controlled nearly a third of the country. We are learning more tonight about just how young people are indoctrinated into a culture of hate, such as ISIS. Correspondent John Huddy reports it starts early and goes by the book.
The textbooks are titled English for the Islamic State. Iraqi troops found them at an orphanage when they liberated eastern Mosul in February. But these are unlike the school books you and I grew up with. In the alphabet, the letter B is for bomb, G for gun. The letter S is for sniper, presumably an ISIS fighter aiming his weapon. The letter W, or woman, shows an indiscernible black figure, most likely a burqa-clad woman. And then there are the pictures of AK-47s and bombs used for math exercises.
Children that live in these violent zones, this makes their brain very open, very susceptible to propaganda, to influences.
The orphanage where the ISIS textbooks were found was used to groom children to become ISIS soldiers or informants, according to Iraqi military officials. Ruth Feldman is a child psychologist at Bar-Ilan University in Tel Aviv who's counseled children traumatized by war and terrorism. She says the toxic education of these so-called cubs of the caliphate only stokes the anxiety of living in a harsh environment, making these children easy prey.
Those messages in the textbook help them divide the world into two. We are the just one, the right one. They are the enemy. They are wrong. They are hateful. They need to be killed. And this is how children grow on violence and hatred.
The NGO Save the Children estimates that more than 1 million children living under ISIS rule in Iraq have either been forced out of school or forced to follow the terror group's perverse curriculum that, in the more advanced courses, train students on how to make suicide bombs and beheading techniques. Brett?
John Huddy in our Middle East newsroom. John, thank you. The Pentagon is investigating reports that some U.S. Marines shared naked photographs of their female colleagues, veterans, and other women on a secret Facebook page. It's believed the group had 30,000 members. One report says more than 24 active duty women were identified by their rank, full name, and location in those photographs. The Florida mother who was acquitted of murdering her 2-year-old daughter 6 years ago is breaking her silence tonight. Casey Anthony insists she still does not know how her child was killed. Anthony spoke with a reporter from the Associated Press. Her daughter Kaylee would be 12 years old if she were alive today. As for her own legacy, Casey Anthony says, quote, "I don't give an expletive about what anyone thinks about me. I never will. I'm okay with myself. I sleep pretty good at night." Is the messaging coming out of the White House mixed or on the same page on a host of issues?